For this video, I'm going to be walking you through the Shadow Isles and Noxus Spiders deck, or at least the version that I'm running. There's a couple of different versions running around where you kind of tailor things to your own playstyle, but this deck was popularized because the first person who hit Master on the ladder was piloting a deck very similar to this, and as such, a bunch of people have net decked it, like you would imagine. That's why I mentioned it a bit in my Demacia Control videos, because this is a deck that you kind of have to plan to face when you are venturing onto the ladder. So I thought I would do a video kind of covering it. We're going to go through the list, and then like I always do, we're going to put one example game at the end so you can see the list in action. But right out of the gate, we have 2 Ravenous Butcher. This is pretty standard in a Shadow Isle list that is trying to be aggressive and has a bunch of small 1/1s or things with last breath, things like Aristocrat, things like the Cursed Keeper, so natural inclusion. 2 Crawling Sensation to help us get those spiders going, 3 Hapless Aristocrat, and then also 3 Precious Pet. So this is a great inclusion to the spider list because the Fearsome is very relevant in the early turns, and it's also a spider, so it helps to level up your Elise. Now, we also have 3 Arachnid Horror. Some lists don't run this at all, but again, Fearsome is proving to be very important in the early turns because it's, in many ways, better than Elusive. With Elusives, another elusive unit can block you, but in the early turns with Fearsome, most of the Fearsome units can't even block other Fearsome units. So like a Precious Pet can't be blocked by Precious Pet. Horror can be blocked by Horror, but still not by Precious Pet. So Fearsome is actually very powerful in the opening turns. This equates to free damage. 1 Black Spear for that situational removal. 3 Cursed Keepers because there's just a lot of ways to make this become a 2-mana 4/4. 3 Elises because with the number of spiders you're running, it's very easy to level her up in this build and then take advantage of her granting all of your other units Challenger. Glimpse Beyond is an amazing card. You run it in every Shadow Isles deck you build in all likelihood. 2 House Spider just to help flood the board, trigger your Elise. It's also like a 3/3 in stats for 2, which is pretty solid. Vile Feast, again, kind of a multi-purpose card in these Shadow Isle lists, specifically spider-based ones. 2 Sentries, because they're spider. Shocker, I know. But also the stun is pretty relevant. And when you're not doing an open attack, sometimes stunning a key potential blocker and then forcing damage through is pretty important. I run 2 Culling Strikes in mine. This is to deal with opposing Fioras, opposing elusive units, Dawn Speakers, and opposing Elise, etc., etc. I just really like the versatility of this card right now. 1 Frenzied Skitterer. Again, Fearsome, buffs your spiders. It's just a cool combat trick. 3 Crowd Favorite. This is your heavy hitter. This is one of your closers. This is very often a 4-mana, like 6/6 or 7/7 Overwhelm. It is very, very good. I'm running 1 Arachnid Host. It's just a top-end spider. The bonus here is permanent, and that's the reason I like to include it. It's a 5/3 for 5, but all your other spider allies get +2/+0, and that is not until end of turn, so I really like that. 2 Darius as other potential Overwhelm finishers on the top end, and then I run 1 Rasa because I think the card is busted, and then I think it's a mistake to not run at least 1 in all of your Shadow Isles lists. Some people have actually been running like Ledros here, so that when you're playing against Control, if they stall you out, but they don't have a way to win the game themselves, right? Like if they get to the point where they've controlled your board, but they don't have enough tempo to push you to death, you can just play Ledros over and over until you win. But I just really like the Rasa because it's a very impactful card, and I like that as my top end. So this is the list I'm running, and as always, after I've went through the list, I'm going to go play a game on the ladder so you can see the deck in action. Also, as always, the deck code will be in the video description, so let's go play that game. Alright, so we are jumping into a game here which appears to be... It's likely ephemeral, right? You see Lucian, you see Hecarim. Callista is not necessarily a traditional inclusion, but for the most part, you're thinking this is going to be an ephemeral list, so... Our job, our goal is to be as aggressive as possible. We're attacking on the odds here, and with the exception of not having an Elise, we have a very strong spidery start. We're going to poke him for damage here, and then we'll have House Spider. And then when it comes back around to us playing this on 3 when you're attacking is usually pretty good. Sets up favorable trades. Glimpse is a great addition to our hand. Alright. Now, this only gives allied spiders +1/+0, so as weird as it sounds, we're actually going to take this trade here. Because we want our aristocrat to be buffed. We're definitely racing them. They have a very strong, like late game kind of combo.
Please, I have connections!
Because Hecarim, once he comes online, can just end the game in a single attack, right? So, delaying them a little bit, setting up some quality spiders here, I think is fine. They'll get to have likely potentially 1 blocker. You know, actually, there's no reason to play this if their board is empty. And no, let's play it, because they all get buffed anyway, right? Like, you don't get as much value here, but this is still a pretty strong race play. The only thing you really fear here is they could do something like play Haunted Relic, just because it puts 3 blockers in our way, but interesting. At 4 mana, that's not quite enough for them to have a Withering Wail. No, they're just taking it. Okay. So that works out very well for us. They're up to 7 now, counting the spell mana if they want to do something extra cheeky. Alright, so before they get to trade into some things, we want this to be huge. And so that's just casually a 4 mana 6/6 with Overwhelm. This is going to eat our 2/2. We could have saved mana back and tried to Vile Feast one of these, but there's not really a reason to do so. Because at the moment, we're threatening lethal with the open attack on our round. Oh no! Alright. That's a good play. So not quite lethal now. We have to make the decision of, do we want to just push this damage anyway or kind of slow play it, because they've got a lot to work with here. And on the one hand, we could just Vile Feast this, and then that gives us enough to threaten lethal, but they could plop down something big that would soak the majority of this, and that does not work in our favor. So I think rather than trying to be super sneaky and push for this lethal, we just go ahead and try pushing as much damage as possible. So this is going to really hit that kind of hard. Now, if you're wondering why that works, it's because it removes the text as well and silences. So all of the buffs go away. Now, I assume they're going to try to glimpse this, and we're just going to try to hit it with another Vile Feast, because we don't want them drawing cards. Now, if they have another glimpse, then okay, they earned it, but... Alright, they earned it. What a trade. Lots of fizzling. But we got some damage in. Go ahead and develop this as well. There's no reason not to. We're gonna have to utilize some of these ourselves here pretty soon, but if we find a finisher, alright, like that.
Don't get in my way.
That's rather nice. I think what we do right now is we actually just pass. We want to be able to block this and then catch the glimpse. Then it will just make another spider, and then we follow up with that. And we know they don't have any mana to respond, so...
This is
we still pass here, and we just soak as much as possible.
Get me out of here.
Culling Strike is nice for later. But we definitely want to get this down.
Noxus.
And here we just, again, go with the open attack.
Glory.
And depending on what kind of combat tricks they have and blocks, we have Glimpse here. We have Culling Strike if necessary. We have a lot of ways to follow up. We don't expect this to be like lethal for us this turn. Another Purify. They had both of them.
Do not test me.
All right.
Defend and protect.
So we have to decide what we want to do here. Letting the 2 damage land on that is probably fine, but we really want to glimpse one of these. And if we're going to end up Culling Striking this, I think that this one is the glimpse, right? So I think we glimpse that. And I think we just try to Culling Strike the Lucian. We don't want to deal with that, like in any capacity. And they could have a buff here for the Lucian. Radiant Strike, like a back-to-back. Elise is a pretty nice pickup here, because if we play her and then pass the turn, she'll immediately level. We'd like to do that going into our own turn, but we'll take a level up when we can get it. But it's going to depend on what they do with their 5 mana here.
There's a chill in
Alright, so that's why they let the Lucian go.
Come closer.
We take the risk here.
Bite.
It's a risk because they could have like a black spear.
My true beauty is beneath the skin.
Alright. 2 Purifies for our crowd favorites was a bit rough. It certainly slowed us down. Alright, so there's the Hecarim. We're just going to go ahead and develop this because we are going to block maybe even a couple of these, because we can always Crawling Sensation afterward. This has Overwhelm, so there's not a lot we can do about that, but being able to stop that there. Lucian won't level up, but this is still probably correct. After this, we have Glimpse, this, and this. So how much damage do we want to let through is the question. I think we do one more. Our sequencing is wrong, so we want Vile Feast here. And the Glimpse sacrificing this to make room on our field first. So we do it like this. So this negates a decent amount of damage, while also giving us the option of not really losing any spiders net if we don't want. We're going to lose 3, but the Vile Feast here should make 1, and then this can make 2 more. Which is relevant because we want to use these to Challenger away the big units and try to push for lethal next turn. And I didn't see anything that's worth playing over the Sensation post-combat. So we'll go ahead and play this now. And if they don't have a combat trick here, they could top deck one, but right now that's what they need. They need some sort of combat trick to shut down my Elise hitting for lethal next turn, because these are going to Challenger away everything else. And so we go with the open attack. And we're just going to go ahead and pull those away. threatening lethal with either units hitting, and they don't have it, so there you go. And that's kind of the power of the list. You're just very aggressive right out of the gate, and you're trying to close things out usually with a leveled up Elise like that, because being able to dictate how people block means your units that, you know, only hit for 3 or 4 are still threatening an awful lot of damage. So that's it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. Hopefully this video helps you if you were considering you know, playing this list, or you wanted an example list. Like I said, there's a couple of different versions floating around, but overall you've got to be aware this thing is very popular. And anyway, that's it. I said that was it before, but I mean it this time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you watching future videos.